Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we do have a yellow rain warning issued for tomorrow for parts of Scotland, as we are going to see a lot of rainfall moving in from the west associated with this approaching area of low pressure. Elsewhere we'll still see some rain and some cloud, but it'll be most intense and most persistent in those northern and western areas. We'll have a look at the latest from the UKV, looking at that rainfall through tomorrow, and of course have a look at the temperatures as well. And all eyes are now on the middle of next week, as we have been talking about some very stormy weather approaching, and that is looking very likely now. And we are looking at Wednesday perhaps for a specific system which is now cropping up a lot within the models. It could be the first named storm of this new storm naming system. Could be Storm Agnes. Can't say for certain yet, as there is some deviations between the runs, but for example the latest UKV has gusts exceeding 100 miles per hour through the Irish Sea, so it'd be a very severe system. Anything above about 70 or 80 miles per hour is normally named in terms of wind gusts. So there is a good chance it's named if this UKV comes off, but as we'll see from some of the other runs, there is some deviation with it. For example, the GFS producing wind gusts of only 50 or 60 miles per hour instead. So there is a little bit of uncertainty with it, but regardless, quite a lively system moving in on Wednesday, and it could be the first named storm of the season. We'll have a look at that in detail throughout the rest of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see it's actually fairly dry across much of the British Isles at the moment, and that's because we've got a brief area of high pressure. It's a ridge just building up from the south. A few showers across parts of north and eastern areas, up towards Newcastle here. A few showers peppering the coast, but again, mostly light. You can see this long stretch of rainfall out towards the west, out towards parts of the Republic of Ireland. Now, over here, the radars aren't as extensive and as accurate, so we can't say for certain this is exactly how it looks, but we know there is an area of rainfall moving in, and this is the initial weather fronts associated with that low pressure system moving in tonight and tomorrow. That's going to give that very heavy rain in northern and western areas. So you can see, yes, we're under high pressure. It's sunny and it will be fairly bright and warm for places today. Maybe 20, 21 or 22 is possible, but that is all going to change as this area of low pressure moves in tonight, giving widespread rain, especially as said in the north. Now, I recorded this a little bit early in the day today, and you can see the temperatures as around 11:30 are as high as some of the days previously to this peak, really. Temperatures already around the 16, 17, 18 degree mark, and as I said, could rise to 21 or 22 in the next few hours. So it'll be a fairly warm day. Northern and westwards always cooler, but it's pretty decent, not too bad. A bright, decent day scattered among some pretty drab days coming up over the next week or so. Now, if I do go over to the weather warnings, you can see the latest rain warning. Now, its positioning hasn't been updated, its intensity hasn't been updated, but it has been updated in its timings this morning, with the heaviest and most persistent rain expected to occur during the afternoon and the evening. The warning time has been delayed. So I think it started at 6 a.m. yesterday, going through to midnight. It's now been moved to 1 p.m. So we're expecting the yellow warning impacts to really be through the afternoon, evening tomorrow. Again, still high impact, low likelihood. Could see 180 to 120 millimeters over the course of a day or so, and maybe again gusts of 50 or 60 miles per hour on coast and over higher ground. Now, if you look at the UKV, we'll have a look at the rainfall. We'll also be able to see the system moving in on Wednesday. Now, if we do run through the rest of this afternoon, you can see it's fairly dry. A few showers in the north and the east. A bit more cloud bubbling up as the low pressure and the weather fronts approach. You can see them out to the west, but still a very pleasant day. As we do progress through this afternoon into the evening, those weather fronts make more progress and start to impact parts of Scotland, Wales and southwest England around sunset this evening. The rainfall moves in, doesn't look too intense here, but we'll have to wait until what happens overnight when we start to see more rain moving up from the southwest. And it's really through tomorrow afternoon we see the heaviest pulses move in, as this is the cold front associated with the low moving through. So we're seeing the warm front this afternoon and evening. We're in the warmer sector through tomorrow, and that's why it could still be fairly warm in the south and the east, even though the overall pattern for the British Isles is cloudy and rainy. And then we see the cold front move through tomorrow evening. Again, could be some line convection along it, and generally just some very heavy rain as it does sweep through. And it does sweep through in southern and eastern areas through the early hours of Monday, but really only bits of cloud and dribs and drabs of rain there. As we head into Monday, it's a day of quite a bit of sunshine and a few showers in the north, but actually a fairly decent day. Again, another little ridge of high pressure. Into Tuesday, we can see more weather fronts approaching from the west, and this is signs that things are becoming a little bit more destabilised. Out in the North Atlantic, heavy bands of rain moving in, again mostly shower, convective base, so these could change quite a bit in the next couple of runs, but regardless, heavier rain perhaps in places on Tuesday, and watch what happens on Wednesday. We see this low approaching from the west, a big hook in it, symbolising a very intense area of low pressure, very organised system, and you can see here it's on its southern and eastern flank of the centre of that low through the Irish Sea. We could see some insanely strong wind gusts as this does move in and eventually sweep through Wednesday into Thursday. It's going to be a very intense system, maybe not quite as intense as the UKV is making out to be, but regardless, it is looking pretty bad through those days. If we have a look at the mean sea level pressure, you can see we're looking at maybe 976, maybe slightly lower, maybe 974, 972 as it's approaching parts of southern Ireland there. So it's a very deep area of low pressure, not the lowest pressure we've seen, and by far, by no means the lowest pressure we've seen on the models recently, but it is still very low. And it's the isobars and how tight they are together, which is why those wind gusts could be so strong. Now, the mean wind speeds here, we're looking at 50 or 60 mile per hour mean winds. Now, remember, Atlantic hurricanes are 70 miles per hour sustained winds. So this would be, if this was categorized as a tropical system, this would probably be a tropical storm with mean winds around that 50, 60 miles per hour. But it's the gusts that really impact us. And you can see most of these strongest sustained winds are out towards the coast. We're looking at 30, 40 miles per hour inland, which is very strong, but nothing completely ridiculous. The wind gusts, though, on the other hand, look at that. Widespread 80 to 90 miles per hour, even inland here, through parts of the Republic of Ireland, towards Wales, Scotland and southwest England, and on its approach you can see there is 100 mile per hour gusts through parts of the southern coast of the Republic of Ireland, and these stronger winds do come inland for Scotland and northern England, more like 60-70 miles per hour as the system does lose a bit of steam. But even if this was the peak of the system, we'd still probably be saying this has got named storm potential, but yeah, some severe winds associated with this low. Again, we'll look at the GFS in a minute. It doesn't produce anything quite as strong as this, looking more at 60 mile per hour wind gusts. But regardless, pretty intense system, and we have to keep a very close eye on this. I'm sure if in the next 24 hours the models stay bang on with this, then we could be seeing warnings issued and maybe naming issued on Monday or Tuesday. We will, as I said, keep a very close eye on it. If you look at the max temperatures, though, you can see through this afternoon we could nudge at 18, maybe 19 or even 20 degrees in the south and east, especially if we see the sunshine hold on. Into tomorrow, even though the overall day will be worse, could be slightly warmer. 19, 20, 21 degrees is possible. That's because we're in the warm sector. The warm front moves through tonight, leaving us in the warm sector, and the cold front sweeps through tomorrow afternoon, and that gives the very heavy rain in the north and west. But as we head into Monday, all areas will be back into some slightly cooler air in the north. The southeast could just about hang on to that warmer air, maybe 20, 21, 22 there. Into Tuesday, still hanging on to some fairly decent warm, 21, 22 again. And then as we head into Wednesday, again, could be decent in the southeast, but further north and westwards, pretty cool and horrible as that heavy rain moves in and those ridiculously strong winds. Now, if you look at the longer range, and of course also have a look at the latest on that system through Wednesday, this is the latest GFS. It's really only just updating, so we can't go out to its extended range, but we can go out to 300 hours here. Now, you can run through till Wednesday, fairly unsettled, but we do have high pressure out to our south and east that tries to hold on, and you can see through Wednesday that system moving in. It's very small here. It looks like a fairly localised system, and if we do zoom in, it is pretty intense, but it only goes down to about 990 millibars here, nowhere near the 970 millibars we were seeing from the UKV. Now, if we do put on the wind gusts here, you can see gusting of 90 or 100 kilometers per hour. Now, about 60 miles per hour is about 95 kilometers per hour, or there or thereabouts. So we're looking at 60, 65, maybe as high as 70 miles per hour here from this latest GFS run, which is intense, but probably would warrant a yellow wind warning and nothing more. So there is still huge amounts of uncertainty with this system. Again, it's positioned much further southwards and eastwards by a few hundred miles at least, maybe more. So again, depending on its placement and depending on its intensity, things could still change. But there is strong agreement that we are going to see quite a deep area of low pressure move in. Just whether it will be a strong low pressure system with maybe a yellow wind warning, or whether it be a named storm, maybe with amber warnings, or even if we see 100 miles per hour, can rule out a red warning if that became much more consistent within the models. Now, if we do progress into the longer range, of course, we'll be able to see that we stay very unsettled all the way out to day 10. There are signs high pressure could continue to try to build in for the south and east, at least into the longer range, but still the westerlies look too strong for that to establish completely. And remember, this upcoming working week, a few days ago, a lot of the runs still had high pressure building in, but it's all reverted now, and we can see a named storm. So it just shows you the uncertainty that the models do have, and the bit of flip-flopping we can see at that sort of medium to longer range, especially this time of year where the Atlantic started to power up, aided by all those tropical systems that are very poorly forecast beyond sort of 5 to 7 days for their sort of overall positioning. Of course, when they are approaching America and approaching land out towards our west, they are well forecasted as they're within radar range, all that stuff. But when they're out in the sea and we've got satellites on it, the models trying to decipher it, is much more difficult to say exactly where they're going. And with all the energy associated with them, it does have huge influence, and that's why we see so much uncertainty in the longer range. Now, if you look at the GM, you can see the low pressure approaching as we head into Wednesday. Very intense here from the GM, much more intense than the GFS was showing. Similar track, actually, to the UKV, interestingly. Again, down towards 978 millibars. Again, we can't see the exact wind gusts here on this look, but very strong winds, very similar in positioning, maybe a bit more out to sea than the UKV had, but roughly on a similar track. And you can see the wind speeds here, we're looking at 40 or 50 knots, so again, around that 30, 40, maybe 50 mile per hour sustained winds, very similar to the UKV. So again, I wouldn't say it's quite as intense as the UKV, but similar in terms of intensity and a lot stronger than the GFS, so interesting seeing that. If we do progress beyond that, so that low moves through and we stay in a fairly westerly regime. Again, high pressure is trying to nudge in and has some success in the south and the east, but in general, we stay in a fairly westerly pattern, and again, could be more intense areas of low pressure to move in. Now, finally, look at the ECM WF over the next couple of weeks. Again, you can see low pressure moving in off the Atlantic, that system moving in, perhaps kind of in between the GM, UKV and the GFS there, with the track more towards parts of Wales, it looks like here when this moves in. We'll try to look at the 3-hour intervals for this. Again, moving through parts of Wales there. Again, not quite as intense, down towards 990 millibars. The wind gusts are, the wind speeds are strong, but we're looking more at 20, 30, 35 knots. So again, sustained winds of 30, 40 miles per hour, and probably gusting at 60 or 70. So kind of in between the GM and the more intense UKV and between the GFS and the more intense UKV and GM. So yes, we've got models all along the spectrum, all showing quite an intense system, but some showing something extremely intense, others showing more of a standard Atlantic low. So as I said, we all have to see. Beyond that though, the overall outlook is continuing to be unsettled. More low pressure coming in off the Atlantic, and towards day 10, again, high pressure has a go at building in here for the first couple of days of October, but low pressure pushes out of the way. Again, lots of weather fronts moving in and lots of unsettled weather, and you can see the accumulated precipitation here is producing a lot of rainfall for northern and western Europe, and you can pretty much see where the low pressure is parked towards the south of Iceland, as it's just got loads of rain spiralling around in this area. Now finally, if we look at the ensembles, you can see the latest GFS. These are the midnight run. 6 o'clock run hasn't come out, and you can see generally we are average, slightly above and slightly below at times over the next couple of weeks. Now you can see there is a slight bump in the upper air temperatures in the next 24 hours or so, and that's why we could see 21, 22 over the next couple of days, because this is generally a warmer air mass, and it is fairly dry in the south and the east. But elsewhere, beyond that, it's going to get very unsettled, as that system could move on Wednesday, could be very intense indeed, and you can see there is a little drop in the sea level pressure there around Wednesday time. Of course, it doesn't look low there, it's around 1,000, maybe 1,005 millibars, but for London, which is most likely going to be quite far away from the centre of the low, that dip indicates the stratospheric low is potentially moving in. Again, we'll have to keep a very close eye on it. If you look at Glasgow, for example, they've got a bit more of a pronounced dip through Sunday, as we see that low move in, and another more pronounced dip through Wednesday. Some down towards 970, 980, others more around 1,000 millibars. Again, we can't say exactly what's causing that. Again, some of these ones are 1,000 millibars, could be as intense as the UKV, but just has the low positioned further southwards or further northwards, meaning the pressure is higher. Others, like the second run here, permutation 2, has 978, which would indicate the centre of the low move through Scotland or very close by to Glasgow. So we will have to see. It's very difficult to plot storms and say exactly what will happen on these ensemble charts. This doesn't really show the full picture, but all the ensemble charts here, as you see from London and Glasgow, does show a dip in the pressure on Wednesday. Just how deep will it go, and the positioning we'll have to determine nearer the time. Now finally, we just look at the team temperatures, again dropping generally in the longer term down towards the mid-teens, and if we compare to the ECMWF, very similar picture, generally around average, slightly above, slightly below, a bit more of a trend of above average in the longer term into October, but you can see a lot more precipitation here, so again, could be an unsettled westerly, maybe even southwesterly pattern, so it'll be warm, potentially humid at times, but lots of rain and cloud around. So the longer term isn't looking great, it's looking pretty autumnal with lots of low pressure around, and there could be some quite severe systems moving in, especially all eyes have to be on Wednesday. We could see Storm Agnes move in. But of course, I'll keep you updated what is going on, and of course, any weather warnings associated with this upcoming week will hopefully get to you in the next couple of days. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you have enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.